stand up to me. People that are not afraid to say exactly what's on their mind. Even though that's probably not what I want to hear, that's great. That's what I want to hear. I'll give you an example. And it really came to life when we were buying RJR. We were deciding to bid or not to bid, what the price we wanted to bid, and we'd have sessions. There were about 7 or 8 of us. It was George Robertson, myself, and Paul Rather, one of my other partners, and then 4 or 5 associates. And we'd sit in my office, and after we'd run all the numbers, and we'd talk thing through, and I'd always start with the youngest person in the room, the youngest member of the team, and I said, "What do you think?" And it was Scott Stewart and Cliff Robbins. They were the two youngest. Because I wanted to hear what they thought, as opposed to having them hear what we thought. And everything comes from the bottom up, and have a very good interchange. And we'd always be the last, George and I, to say, well, what we thought. And so it's not a directive saying we will buy this company, run the numbers, and prove that we're doing the right thing. It's should we buy this? What do you think? And letting them communicate, letting them say what's on their mind. We want the members of this firm, whether they're an associate or whether they're a partner, to put their own money up in every transaction, their own money at risk. Just like we ask the management to have their money at risk, we do the same thing here. We have everyone at KKR, from the receptionist at the front who you met when you came in, to all the secretaries. They own stock in every one of our companies. Now, granted, they have it on options, but our people here working on the transactions put their own money up. And you think differently. And we want people who are not afraid to take a risk, who are not afraid of a challenge. And I want people who are going to be diligent. They're going to ask the tough questions, and they're going to keep probing until they're satisfied, and not just say, well, he told me this, so it must be right. A little bit like a reporter sometimes, asking questions all the time. We have a fear all the time, but that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us focused. You have to have a fear. People who say, I have no fear and I'm not afraid of ever failing, they're kidding themselves. Sometimes it's the fear of failure, of not wanting to fail, that makes people as great as they are. I know that's what pushes me a lot. I've always said, I say it to my children, I said, I'm the kind of person that could fall out of a window, land on my head, I'm going to bounce a couple times, and I'm going to come up on my feet, because I'm going to make myself come up on my feet. And you have to be a little bit of an optimist too, but a realist. And risk is important to take, not foolishly, not blind risk. But I love the word entrepreneur. And I ask students sometimes up at Columbia, I'm on that board, and I ask them, how many of you want to be an entrepreneur? A lot of hands go up, and I said, okay, you explain to me. What does that mean? Well, I'd like to go work at IBM. And I said, you just failed. That doesn't count. I said, how about you? Well, I'd like to work at Procter & Gamble. And I said, you failed too. A real entrepreneur is somebody that has no safety net underneath them. Is really, truly has an idea and has a vision and sticks to their convictions. You've got to have the courage of your convictions. And a lot of people are going to tell you you're wrong. If you did everything by consensus, you wouldn't do anything at all. I mean, look at I think it was the people that started Kodak, and certainly Mr. Land and the Polaroid company. They all thought he was nuts, both of them. Kodak went door to door to get to raise money, and most people slammed the door in this man's face. But he stuck to it, and he has what he has today. It would have been very easy for us to shut up shop here at KKR and just say, well, look, it's just too difficult, and it's not going to work. But no, we've had some failures, of course. Not everything works. We're in a high-risk business. But thank God we've had a lot more successes than we've had failures, and we've only had a couple that haven't worked out, and the jury's still out on those. But she asked me one day, she said, tell me the 3 words, I want just 3 words, that are how you would describe your life, things that are very, very important to you. I thought about it for a minute, and I said to her, courage, integrity, and commitment. And And those are three things that I basically live my life by. And she had a seal made, and she had a box made engraved in silver, which had those three things written on it in a seal that she had for me. And those three words, those three terms have worked for me. They don't work for everybody. But you talk about courage. Come back to having the courage of your convictions. The ability to face failure. As I say, there's nothing wrong with failing. Pick yourself up and try it again. You're never going to know how good you really are until you go out and you face failure. Integrity, that's a given. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. You can't buy it. You can have all the money in the world. But if you're not a moral and an ethical person, you really have nothing, because you only have one thing to sell in life, and that's yourself. And commitment to me is the ability to stick to something. You make up your mind. I hate people that go out and always talk about they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they never do it. And I said, quit talking about it, just go do it. I don't want to hear about it. When you've done it or you made an attempt to do it, that's fine. I tell my children when they're very young, kids have a term, and it's always, I can't do it. They don't know whether they can do it or they can't do it until they try it. But it's easy. I can't do it. I can't ski. I can't ride a bike. I tell my kids, let's just take that word out of your vocabulary, because the word can't isn't in your vocabulary until you've really made an attempt to try it. And if you've really tried something and you've given it your best effort, that's all I ever ask of you. But make a commitment to do something. You have a vision? Fine. It's not going to be a straight road to the goal line. It's going to be a lot of zigs and zags and throwing for some losses. The other thing I say to my children, I said, be on that field. Don't sit on the sideline. Don't sit on the sideline and focus on what other people are doing. And don't be on that sideline and putting your leg out trying to trip the runner as he comes down the side. You get on that field and you play. And you wear the same uniform. And you get banged up just like everybody else. And then you're going to know what it's like. It's easy to criticize. Anybody can criticize. But you get on that field and you play. And you're going to have a totally different respect for yourself and a different sense of one's worth. And it's very important to do that. Another thing I tell my children, I said, don't worry about what the other person's doing. A lot of people are always worried about what somebody else is doing. I said, I love people that are worried about what I'm doing. I said, people seem to know more about what I'm doing than I know about what I'm doing. And I hear it all the time. And I guess as you get luckier and a little more successful, you hear a little more of that. And I said, quit worrying about what other people are doing. Because I said, if you're worrying about what other people are doing, you're not doing anything yourself. I said, you're on that sideline. And you're just watching. You need to know what your competition's doing. You need to know what the environment's like. But don't dwell on what other people are doing. I love people who dwell on what I'm doing, particularly if they're in our field, because I'm out there behind the wheel driving along, and they're trying to catch up, and that's great. Well, at first, not very well. I took everything very personally. I'd read every word, and just like my wife did. I mean, she would read every word, and together we overcame this. We said, finally enough people told us that most people don't remember what they've read to begin with. They only remember a trend, and as long as you're honest, and as long as you're reasonably successful, they'll remember that. And I remember someone called me one day, right after the heat of battle in RJR, and we were getting beaten up pretty badly in the press, and because the other side had really gone after us and was planning all the stories, and we had always taken an attitude of not talking to the press. We just said, look, our record speaks for itself, and we'll just let it stand. And I think that was probably a mistake in the RJR, because the other side kept feeding what they wanted in, and there was no rebuttal from our side, so pretty soon people started to believe the other side. And we learned a lot from that, and it was very hard. And people would tell me, said, forget about it. A day-old newspaper is good to wrap fish in, and let's forget about the fact that, this was written about you. It was hard. It was very hard for me to feel that I want people to like me. I wanted people to like what we did, and because we worked hard at it. It's like any creative person. You don't want everybody to feel like you feel about it. Well, not everybody's going to have the same feeling, and so it was a very hard thing for me to learn to live with. Today, I've learned to try to educate as a few good reporters, and I said, look, if I got a few good reporters that really understand what we do, as opposed to pulling something that was wrong out of a computer and then compounding it by writing something more that's wrong, pretty soon the whole story's all wrong. I said, we can educate these people, then I'm going to have a fair chance at getting my point across. And but the press hasn't changed. I've gone back and read stories about J.P. Morgan and how he hated the press. And here was a man that was enormously successful. And you think about, well, J.P. Morgan was an incredible financier in his time. People wrote about him, they didn't like him, they thought what he was doing was wrong. He was making very large acquisitions and also bailing out a lot of companies by being the provider of last resource, practically. And he provider of last source. I mean, he lived with it. I'll live with it. Nothing's going to change. One person's my role model is my father. I just beam with pride about him. He's now 89 years old. He plays golf all the time, and he's got lots of friends. And he's a man who taught me something that's very, very important, and that was give back to society what you've taken out of it. I've been really fortunate that way. I'm glad I learned it at a very young age, that yes, I've been very successful and I've been lucky, and maybe I've made more money than I deserve, but some of the most important moments in my life, and moments that have given me the most pleasure, have clearly been the times that I've been able to make a major contribution in money or time and effort to those less fortunate. Whether it's a drug program that I've started here in New York, which we got funding from the federal government plus my own money, and if it works, we'll roll it out nationwide, to being chairman of the public television station here, Channel 13, and being involved in education, which is very important to me, and I think it's our future in this country of educating children. The arts, I'm very involved with the arts, whether it be the Metropolitan Museum or the New York City Ballet. Central Park I've been very involved in, so I'm trying to this wonderful park out here, I'm trying to make it more beautiful for those people who live in New York. It's our 834 acres of green space here. We've got to have it for everybody. He's my hero because he taught me the joy of giving, the joy of people, of getting to know a lot of people and having those friendships that are binding friendships. That's important. Another hero, of course, I've only read about, Winston Churchill. A real Renaissance man, incredible leader, incredible thinker, prolific writer, great orator, artist, just a wonderful, wonderful man. They don't make him like Winston Churchill. And that's another person that is a role model. I don't have a lot of role models per se. I've sort of set my own goals and set my own objectives, and things that are really important to me. It's that foundation my mother gave me, and that's what I try to live by, as opposed to saying I want to be like that person. I don't want to be like anybody. I want to be like me. And I just like the fact I can read about these other people, or I have this wonderful input from my father that enabled me to be the way I am. And that's what's important. I have a teacher who was a great influence on me when I was in boarding school at Loomis, Jim Wilson. He was my economics teacher, and he was also my dorm head. And I didn't know what economics was before I took this course. and I was really moved by the course. I was moved by him, and that's probably one of the reasons I chose the field of business, interestingly, was this course that I had, and how much I enjoyed it, and how much challenge that he gave me to learn about economics, learn about supply side economics, and demand by the consumer, and wage push, inflation, and so forth. And I look back. In fact, I saw him last night. Every year he brings his economics class down to New York, and I give him a dinner in New York after they spent the day going around to see the banks and investment banks. And I talked to him for a couple hours and let them ask questions, and I really just enjoy it. I enjoy doing that. So that's another person that had a great influence on my life. I wasn't a great student. I was all right. In the courses I liked, I did very well. But the courses I didn't really care about, I don't think I did quite as well as my parents would probably have liked me to have done. I did very well in the political science courses, I did very well in the economics and finance courses as I went through college and graduate school. But I was eager to learn. I was eager to learn everything that I could. But probably more importantly than anything, I was eager to apply what I learned. That's why this job at the Madison Fund was so important to me, and I look back about how much I really learned as I was on-the-job training. There's no substitute for on-the-job training. I loved athletics in school. When I was in my boarding school days, I played football. I was captain of the wrestling team my last year in high school, and I ran track. And I've always been very, very competitive. I love competition, and the more competition, the happier I am. And just tell me I can't do something, and that's all I need to hear, and I can really get fired up to do it. It's the easier things that maybe I get a little lax on. But so I always liked the competition at school. I like the competition of sports. I like the teamwork. I love being a member of a team. But if you look at track, and you look at wrestling in particular, they were individual sports, but part of a team. And so again, comes back to, I didn't have to rely on anybody else. Nobody else let me down there. I was as fast as I was going to be as fast, and I wrestled as well as I could wrestle. And if I lost, that was my own fault. I had nobody to blame but myself. And that was something I learned in school. I learned a lot about. Don't look for excuses. You have nobody to blame but yourself. Don't try to say it was his fault or her fault, because, in the end, you have to be held accountable, and that's the important thing. I had a lot of friends in school. I love friends. I was very social in school, and as I got to college, I probably spent more time going to parties than I probably should have, but it was all part of it. Got out to California, and I loved to play golf, and when I was in high school, the school didn't have a golf team, so I out of Claremont, went out for the golf team my freshman year, and I made it, and I played 4 years of competitive golf in Southern California. They elected me captain my last 2 years, and I love that challenge, again, of playing sort of 25 to 30 matches a year and 4 or 5 tournaments, and I was all right. I wasn't great, but I was all right. I guess I got down to sort of one handicap. But these kids today, they're scratch or better, and so it was a great experience. It was also a humbling experience too, to play against schools like Southern Cal and Stanford we played against once, and UCLA we played against every year, and these kids would be out there. I mean, they were good. Many of those kids went on and turned pro. But being able to beat them sometimes, I mean, that was a challenge that I always loved. There was a book that I read, it was called Escape from Freedom, I read in school, and I relate to it a lot because it talks about people always wanting total freedom, wanting to do whatever they want to do, but in reality, people want bounds. People want to be able to hold on to something. They want to be able to know that this is the outer limit of whatever it happens to be, and it's like a child growing up. A child wants direction. They'll tell you they don't want any direction, and they'll tell you, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. But in reality, they really want you there. And I learned a lot. It had a huge impact in the early part of my life. Just talking about what freedom really means to different people, and I had a chance to really think through what that meant to me. And that was a book that meant a lot. I love reading history books. Whether it's reading about Napoleon and all of his great conquest, or reading about Churchill and the leadership that he provided during the war and after to Britain. Those are books that have an impact on me because I can relate, or I try to relate. And I said, wonder, how would I have acted? How would I react during the times that they were in, if I had the same challenge that they have? I mean, I look today and I just marvel, for example, at how President Bush is handling the war. That takes guts. That takes a commitment. It's that wimp factor of his is gone now, I think forever, and I got a lot of admiration for him and how he's handled this. My career, I have really just loved it. It has been a challenge. There's something new every day for me. I mean, the fantastic thing about the career is not just buying and selling companies. It's the fact that we've got a portfolio of companies that range all the way from hotels and motels to television stations and cable TV companies and oil and gas and consumer products and industrial products. And anything that I want to know more about, I have that opportunity. It's right there. It's in our portfolio, and I can spend the time at a factory or with the management and learn as much as I want. And so that's wonderful. That's a real challenge. You can't get bored doing that. If I just had one company and worked there all the time and I was a product manager, I could get very bored doing that. What I would do differently, when I went through school, as I've said, I was in a hurry, and I was in a hurry to succeed when I got out in the business world. And so I was an economics major in undergraduate, and I was a finance major in graduate school. And I'm sorry today that I didn't take more courses in the humanities and history and in the arts. I'm trying to make up for it now. I have a reasonable art collection, and so I try to study 18th and 19th century European painters and art. I spend time with the New York City Ballet and enjoy the ballet. My wife has taught me a little bit about music and opera, but she's a real expert in it. I don't know very much about it, but I've learned more. History. I'm sorry I didn't read more history. I'm sorry I didn't have that opportunity to really focus, because things always repeat themselves. History is a great teacher. It's a great lesson for the future, and you can go back and learn a lot from history. And so I'm sorry that I took the route of not having as many courses in the arts and humanities and history as I would like to. I like to succeed. I don't want to fail. And I said to you earlier, the fear of failure, drives a lot of people. That probably is part what drives me. I know there'll be things that I'll fail at, but overall I don't want to be a failure. And I come back to the challenge again. Why am I in a hurry? Why do I work as hard as I work? I do it because I enjoy it. I don't have to do it, obviously, but I enjoy it. I enjoy creating something, financial creation. I'm not an artist or a musician, but creating something that hasn't been done before, and I enjoy that. And we have a lot of people at this firm, and we're all built more or less alike. We love to succeed. There's nothing that gives greater pleasure than success. I measure it by accomplishing the goals I set out for. And they can be goals that are monetary goals. They can be goals that are are personality related. I'm going to get this person to this manager to think differently. I'm going to get this person to start thinking longer term. I'm going to get this person to hopefully be more competitive, to have a different purpose. And if I can accomplish those kind of goals, that's success. Money, that's a way to keep score. It's important, but believe me, it is not the end all at all. You get to a certain level, and how much money can you spend? And so, what's more important is the fact I don't want to let our people down here, and I don't want to let the people down in the field. We own, as I said, have owned 38 different companies. Today we have a portfolio of some 15 or 16 companies, and we have hundreds of thousands of employees in these different companies with about $40 billion in revenue. They're counting on us. These people's livelihood depends upon, in part, on decisions that we make. And I don't want to let those people down. I want to do what I hope is the right thing. And yes, there's some pain going through it. Yes, there's some terminations early on. But in the long run, if we can make a company more competitive and leaner and more profitable, they eventually are going to hire more people because they're going to grow and they're going to be able to make acquisitions down the road, sensible acquisitions. Then that again is another success. It's another goal we set out for ourselves. And if we can accomplish that and make companies, even if it's a handful of companies, more successful and more competitive, then those can be used as models to as we go forward. I think one of the most important things that I've had to overcome is jealousy from the outside, of learning that not everybody's going to be my friend. They'll tell you they are. They'll look at you and say one thing and then turn right around and do something exactly the opposite, or stab you in the back. Sure, they're disappointments. They're disappointments in life. That's life. Coming to a big city, the best background I could possibly have had is growing up where there's green grass, growing up where family counts, growing up where friends really count, and growing up as a kid out on a playing field. Being on that playing field is so important, and that's given me the foundation for what I have today. And but I mean, I like to tell the story about how I sold magazines as a kid in the 7th grade in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I go to door, and I always had to be the best salesman. I wanted to go back to my junior high school and win the prize for the day of having sold the most magazines, and that was a challenge for me. Or collecting waste paper, newspaper, old newspaper. I go around and I collect them and keep them in the garage. My mother said, "When are you going to get rid of that stuff?" And I said, "Well, when you take me down to the waste paper dump, we'll get rid of it then." And I collect it in my wheelbarrow and go around the neighborhood. And she'd take me down and we'd load it on the scales, and they'd pay me, $1.36 or whatever it was for my newspaper, and I go back and do it again. Well, I guess that's where I learned inventory control and marketing and a little finance as a kid. Just pretty common sense kind of things, and it was building those blocks slowly, one after another, taking one foot and putting it in front of the other, and always keeping my eye on what I wanted to accomplish. Where did I want to be? And that's the important thing. So those are some of the things I had to overcome getting here. Sometimes it's not easy because people want somebody with gray hair or no hair, as the case may be. As I said earlier in this interview, I remember being down in Louisiana, and people saying, we thought somebody with gray hair was going to come here. And basically I just say, just listen. Judge me for what I have to say. Judge me for how I handle you, for I handle myself. And it doesn't matter whether you've got a card that has a certain title, as long as they know you're in a position of authority. Don't ever belittle yourself. You'd be surprised what you can do if you set your mind to it. And I always had this attitude. I said, I can sell. I said, I can sell myself. If my ideas made sense, and it wasn't outlandish, and it wasn't crazy, and I wasn't being cocky, but I got people to trust me. I got people to know me. You can overcome a lot of that youth, and I remember one time being down in North Carolina. We were buying a brick company, and the management, the owner of this brick company, is called Board and Clay Products. The man was about 74 or 75 years old, and he refused to sell this company to his son-in-law. He just had a block about selling this to his daughter's husband, and even though the daughter's husband was running the company and was doing a great job, he had to have somebody else that he would sell it to. And we became that person, and I must have looked to him like some kid, right out of school and wet behind the ears in 1974. But at the end he says, you're pretty bright, kid, and we hit it off. And I didn't tell him everything he wanted to hear, but I was honest, and I told him, gave him my best judgment of how something could be structured and how we could buy this company. And that was one smart man, because he sold his brick company to us right at the top of the cycle. He almost hit it to the day, because the minute we bought it, we went out of the gate backwards. No, I was able to convince, and that was a challenge for me. I always liked that ability to convince somebody who was much older than, even though I may not have their gray hair or their maturity,